newspapers, not a lot of people use online media. So that being said, there's a censorship of media, and the approach to media in those countries is you hear something in the news that is the opinion. In the United States, our approach to media, the way we're taught to look at media is, you know what, this is a person who's writing, this is a person who's saying this.
That's how you're not taught how to do it. I just want to make that really clear, how we are taught.
And I'm not saying this is a superior approach either, but I'm just saying this is how we're taught as a whole to approach media. This is an individual is writing this. This individual has biases. This person tried to do their research, tried to be objective, but every human has flaws, every human has biases. So the idea of American media is to look at as many sources as you possibly can and then try to piece together a view of what we can objectively determine is true. And of course we have our own biases when we're interpreting things, but that's the general approach to media. So in a social media situation, when we're trying to piece together the holistic view, the views of everybody, because that's what social media is. And you know, I think discussions about the conflict, I think discussions about differences between countries have to come about. Because our focus, our similarities was social media, was taking a global approach to trying to determine truth in media from where, and everybody in the program was a reporter, and we're trying to determine their biases and piece together facts.
Right. More questions, all right.
I was wondering about the geographic distribution of the participants from Azerbaijan and Armenia.
They were basically centered in there were a few students in, I'm sorry?
The US way to go on.
Okay, obviously in the United States we had them from all across the US. In Armenia, correct me if I'm wrong, there were a couple students in the regions, but mostly in Yerevan. Baku, it was where most of the participants there were focused. So they were in places that I think the part of the criteria, they had to be in a place where they could access the internet. Correct? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, in the whole country, we had 30 participants in Armenia in general, and they are from two different regions. But here in our within our 10 students, we have from two different regions. Yerevan, mainly most of them, and only 2 of them from Norwegian.
Okay.
Other questions? Yeah.
I have 2 questions. First, thank you for your honesty and your openness discussing all this. The conversation was started by telling the audience here that you are 9 out of 90, and you also said that these are the top participants. Mm-hmm. Do you know what these criteria are? Why are you the top participants? And why are your other 20 American peers not here with you? And my second question, because I heard a dissenting view from the young lady in the front that opinions haven't changed very much. Do you, by the program, at any time or currently feel stymied or restricted in talking about whether opinions have changed or not? So was this a totally open, intuitive process, or were some things kind of programmatically restricted to you? So why you and not others?
That was addressed to you, and then I'll talk about criteria for selection, but go ahead.
The second question. No, not at all. I mean, when we went to Baku, we were told pretty much, we talked about how we probably shouldn't talk about the conflict, or we shouldn't, just openly criticize their government, which makes sense in the circumstance, I think, just because we're there as visitors and we're not there to just completely, judge them. And
Baku bashing was our term for it. That was not allowed.
But between the Americans, I mean, there's been completely open discussion, and there hasn't been any kind of, we haven't censored what we've said.
But this is the first discussion we've been able to share with the outside world, where we've been able to be completely open.
Outside the bloggers too.
Outside the bloggers.
Yeah, I feel like we're still I feel like during this trip a lot of the time it's good that we haven't been talking with the wider people about our honest views, because they keep changing and we keep realizing, oh, that was really stupid for me to think that as we go. And right now, and I'm very glad that it was an inner monologue that was going on in the first few days in both countries, because it was quite silly. And I think that it's in our American group, we're ridiculously honest sometimes. It's
to
kind
the point of offending people in our own group.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a foreign country, you kind of, it's like almost the going away to summer camp mentality where you really get to know people and are very just open. And I think that sometimes it's not the best idea to be completely open when you're in some of the countries here, just because you don't want to get other kids in the program in trouble.
And
So
sure,
there are times when it's good not to say everything.
And I wanted to make a comment. I guess it sort of came out saying that opinions haven't changed, and that's not to say that people haven't changed, because I mean, we've all changed, and all of the Azerbaijanis and the Armenians, I'm sure, have changed, just in that we've learned to see each other as people, and we've learned to judge or take each other's opinions differently. At least that's what my experience was. And although, I mean, we started out when we were really little being taught by our parents, and like in schools and our societies, and we basically, I mean, I know I have basically the same views as my parents, and I mean that's because how I was raised. And although maybe our initial opinions haven't really changed that much, we have, as people, have definitely changed, and it's been a really worthwhile program in that sense.
About what everyone's just saying, we had a discussion on the bus once in a parallel, the government's here to perhaps parents, like you just said, parents. And I was a homeschool student before. I went to public school this year, so my final year in high school. And I was kind of in a bubble with my parents, and then I didn't realize it until I was outside the bubble and I'm in public school. Not bashing other forms of education, but I realized, you know, they wouldn't let me hang out with certain people because of differences, and they didn't want me to change and things like that. And I feel that it was hard for me too, because I wanted to stay with my parents, be like, okay, my parents know what's best for me. And yeah, I wanted to try new things, meet new people, think about new ideas. And I feel that this whole situation has been like that, only my example is a smaller scale, of course, to a country and a government. So I feel like I don't blame anyone for trying to stick with their culture, their government, because I obviously did that with my parents. But I felt that.
Okay, good. So, Mark, go ahead.
Two things. First of all, hi, Arzen. And second of all, I have to. I have to agree with Emily. I think that people in every country where you live have been conditioned to think a certain way, and not judging that way, but a certain way for their entire lives. And 1 2-week magical mystery tours are going to change that. But I don't think the goal of this trip was to change opinions completely. I think it was just to change the people, so that even if they didn't agree with each other's opinions, they'd still be able to talk about it.
Other questions? Yeah.
My question is for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before I do that, actually, go ahead and ask your question, and then I'll get to it. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think your parents did the right thing? I mean,
It's really a hard decision because there's lots of opportunities that led me from homeschooling. For example, I did online schooling, and I wouldn't have been in this program if it weren't for that online schooling and a teacher, so it's kind of difficult to answer that question because a lot of things have come about from that. But also, I feel that I had to come out of that. If not, it was going to be in college. I think it's a natural process that, and if it doesn't happen earlier, then you're going to have more problems when you're older. So, I mean, I think this is a good time for myself. Everyone has a different time for that to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I really don't know what that person will be like, but it happens at different stages for everyone.
I want to get back to the selection process. So the students that you're seeing here, yes, regrettably, we had to leave 20 Americans behind. But one, because State Department funding is limited, and I would never. I love you guys, but I would never take 20 more of them on a tour unless I'm a real glutton for punishment. But no, in all seriousness, the students who are here were the most dedicated bloggers, and that was
in terms of post numbers,
post quality,
engagement,
total engagement, reaching out, posting feedback and responses on their peers' blogs. getting connected to other forms